Hey y'all, if you're me, it's been about approximately 30 seconds since the last video. And if you're not me, it has been an indeterminate amount of time, at least from my perspective. You know exactly how long it's been, but, hello again to ya, and let's get started. So, the part we left off at was this guy here. And so I said I want to expand on what we actually did here. And so, because I don't think anything about input-output should be so complicated. I really think, computers are quite simple, in the sense that, and you probably just went, no. But hear me out. In a way, especially if you're a Linux user, and I am a diehard Linux user. I believe Linux is going to take over the world eventually. People think AI is going to take over the world. Let me tell you, it's Linux, specifically Nix OS. It's really quite simple. It's just a file tree. It's a bunch of folders. Linux is exactly that, is a bunch of folders. Everything as a file is a concept in Linux. And so really the only complexity that we need to think about is where are our files? And so, we could even keep this really simple. We could have a absolute reference, and we just know exactly where that file is. Maybe we're building something that has, some variability in what file it chooses for some motivation of our program. Beyond that, even then, as I just said, beyond that, we're just talking to other computers. And so the way in which we're doing that is through some sort of communication or some sort of communication protocol. And so most often, in terms of web development, we're talking HTTP. And in the most broad scope, we are talking about any arbitrary rule set to define how we communicate with another computer. But once we go through that medium of communicating with another computer, and of course, we do have to think about how some information is being received by the other computer. We are still talking to another file system. And, it does get, again, more complex because they can have different file systems. They could not be a Linux. And, we have to think about the complexity of that, I suppose, but not a ton. We do have to think about the web application interfaces that we are working with. Of course, we can't just access arbitrary information on another computer. I'm also not sure why we want to do that unless you're doing some very sneaky stuff. Please do not do that to mine or anyone's for that matter. Unless you're an ethical hacker, I guess. I don't know. But my point is, I think I/O is something that can be definitely simplified when we think about it. And, especially in this lens, we don't have to think about, how Rogers or Bell, or any other shameless plug, which I'm not getting compensated for, sends around our data. We just need to think about what sort of thing we're trying to access. And so I feel like I'm talking a lot about this because I'm super passionate about web scraping, and I see the entire web as something that can kind of be used. So, how would we do web scraping? Well, we're not going to do web scraping in this lesson, but we would do that through web requests. And in effect, we are asking a virtual file system, and I won't actually get into HTTP because I don't think that, again, that's not a Haskell specific thing. I might have to get into a bit of it just with the nature of the beast, but yeah. So, anyways, so what are we actually doing here? And how can we... So I was saying that we would also do getLine. And, we would take this getLine. We've done getLine before. It's pretty straightforward. It gets some input from the user, from standard in, and brings it into our program as X. And then we could put it back to the user as X. So, nothing real complicated here. We're just getting it from standard in and putting it to standard out. But if we actually look at the types of these functions, the definitions of these functions, what we are doing in the most general sense is we are reading from a buffer. And so when we are reading from a buffer, Actually, let me think for a second. Alright, apologies, my language is off. I meant to say handle. But my point that I was going to get to here is that we are under the hood using hgetLine. If we look at the type of... And I hope this does not... If we look at the source code here, we can just see that it's getting hgetLine of standard in. Standard in is just, let's not show that. It's just basically a reference that is independent of operating system to the standard input. And so we can effectively do the same with any other file. And that's effectively what we're doing with... So under the hood, my point is that when we do read file and getLine, we are effectively doing the same thing of reading from a particular handle. And then we are writing to a different handle when we put string line or write a file. So under the hood, the whole point is that these are the same thing, just different file locations. Now, if we delete this, and I'm going to have func2, honestly, because make web request. So there's a couple of different libraries and ways that I've seen to do this. Personally, I found that some are easier than others. My personal suggestion is just going directly with network.http client, and I find it's actually not that challenging at all. It's kind of, there's another HTTP rec, I believe it is. Network.http.rec, I believe, is something that its goal is to simplify this, but I don't really think this has to be so complicated. And hopefully I can make what complexity is there easier. I think it's just easier to go into the thing you are trying to do as opposed to use a constraining helper for it. So anyways, we're just going to literally do this exactly here. I mean, this does the exact, except we don't really care about that. But it does the response body. So yeah, we're literally just going to take this, and we'll see what it does. So, and I'll explain this, but I literally have done this just a billion times in my web scraping, and I even just made it a function get HTML. which just gets me the contents of a particular web page as HTML or really just a string, and then I do further processing with it. So what I would be surprised if you were familiar with is the concept of the manager. And so what this is doing, we are creating we are making a side effect of a manager who is managing all of our outgoing HTTP connections and keeping them alive and such. So maybe there's a better explanation here. Yes. So, and that said, I don't know if this channel, I might make another channel for more complex Haskell to talk about concurrency and such, but you wouldn't, so even in that complex case, you wouldn't need to think about creating a bunch of different managers. You would just create one manager and then have this reference to it. So when you make this, what this manager is just a way for your program to find how to talk to that manager that has been created. And then what this is, parse requests, it makes this extremely easy. Parse. So even in the case that you want to do a post request, I still would use parse request just out of pure laziness. And the reason for this is that if we look at the type of parse request, what this is doing is converting a URL to a request. And if we look at the type here, so it's a lot for sure, but you don't really need to think about much of this. I mean, maybe you do in particular cases, but this will create sort of a default request for you just by giving some sort of some sort of URL. And so let me see if I can print a request. I should be able to do this because it has a show instance. Oh, I'm not in the REPL. So I gotta import it. Cabal is downloading that package. So while that's happening, let me pause for a second. Sorry about that. So, what I ran into there was, I guess, what people complain about with Cabal, I would imagine. And what happened was that zlib was not available. I don't know if you guys have run into that issue before. Zlib is a compression library that is used in web requests and many other things. But how I handled it was just by using Nix. It was actually quite easy to solve with Nix and quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Nothing special. I didn't do anything too complicated. It literally is 2 commands that I ran, and I'm good. So I think I will do, I have been planning on doing a Cabal tutorial, and so I think that will definitely be necessary as my next video. Seems like the time. So yeah, let me do that. And then And I think you can probably get away from this by also using stack. I'm not too sure. But if you are using this and don't want to learn about Cabal just yet, or Nix, I'm not going to make you learn about Nix. I might do another channel about that, but yeah. So I will provide instructions on how to do that, and you know what? I'll show you guys right now, really quick and easy. Well, it's not that quick. So, I mean, if you can figure out how to get Nix, which is really easy, you just go to the website and there's an installation script. I pretty much have it memorized by, except for the URL part, which is the whole part. But all I've done here is I've just created a Nix wrapper around Cabal, so that it has all of the dependencies, including zlib, and all I had to do was this one command to do it, and then I can do Nix shell and do Cabal REPL, and I'm good to go. So, anyway, status code is not in scope. I don't really care about it though, so I'm just gonna do this. Good to go. So if we run make web rec, did that go through? Oh, I printed the request, not the response. Oh, then here I did actually. So it looks like I got a response. Cool. I'm not sure what that means. Not sure what to say about that, but yeah, so we have just made a web request here. Really, really quick and easy, in my opinion. And so I guess I haven't explained the rest of this. So this parse request just prints out a request, and that's what we're seeing here. So I guess the request, I believe it doesn't show all of the fields that are a part of requests as a whole that we saw when I was on the hackage, but these are the more important ones, and so I could change the method to be something else. I think is it for sure method? Yeah. So I could say that I want let rec2 be request method equals post. I believe this will work. Method is a byte string, so this should work. This is going to work because I'm using a pretty basic language extension. Well, I will be using a basic language extension called overloaded strings. And so this just allows me to write. So how we were writing strings before, I might want to say, like for example, hey, I could say that this is of type string, and I don't believe this will work yet. It will complain. A couple reasons. Import data.text. And so this is going to complain unless I set the language extension of overloaded strings. So now I can say that this is of type text. Same with byte string. If I have it imported. So that's why here I can say that method is post. I could also do the same with request body. is it? How did I change the request body before? I know I've done this. Well, it's just again right here. Yes. So I guess you do have to use that. But so if we go back to request body, so I can give it a number of different forms of request body, and we are going to pretend that these don't exist because for the most part they are this. And these are just more complicated types that we don't need to actually think about. So yeah, we're going to give it a byte string. So we could say request body equals request body BS. A. And that will work. So easy to do a GET request as well as a POST request, or really any other request if we just change this to, what's another one? Put. I can't remember the last time I actually used a put, but yeah. So that is web requests, I believe. I don't think there's much else to say about that. I mean, there really isn't. So you can change a number of different things. You can get quite complicated with how you customize your web requests, but in all cases, it's really just, finding what that field is and then saying field equals some new value. And then that will give you a request, but not actually execute the request. And so that's where we get to HTTP LBS. So HTTP LBS, what that does is return a byte string, or a lazy byte string. So in terms of the response and how the response works, it does get a little bit more complicated, as I found out with my web scraping library. In terms of it returns a stream that you can sort of slowly pop off from. Although I believe with HTTP LBS, you don't actually need to worry about that. So I think then that said, it doesn't make sense to go too deep into that. Yes, it's just response byte string. So, oh yeah, no, I was using a different function. Yeah, okay, so I was not using a different, I was using a different function, and that's why I got a more complicated result. But this is kind of a beginner's function here that they give you, and it just makes it, very straightforward. So response, I believe this is just a wrapper. And so response takes this body. Body in our case is just a byte string. Nothing complicated, nothing like I was thinking. And we could get that response body. And that is what we're doing when we go to print it. And so that's what we see right here. We are just accessing that that part of the record type. So our request is a record type, which allows us to do this sort of editing here and turn it into a new variable. We cannot edit request directly. We have to make a new request, and then this gives us back a response, which is its own different record type, with one of the fields of that record being response body. And since it's a field inside record type, it's also a function, an accessor function. Yeah. yeah, I guess that's really it. I guess we might also want to look for the response status, which they were doing here. I got rid of it because I didn't want to find status code, and I guess I could do this. Oh. What is status? Yeah. So I guess I could. Well, if I imported network.http.types.status, then I could have done this. But this is going to be your classic response 200 for if the request was successful. 400 or something along that line, maybe 500 for server error if it was not successful. And so that's how you could find out if you had a successful request or not. And that's it. That's all I said I would do in this video. I don't want to go past that point. Yeah. No more. Less is good. Less is good. So, again, thank you for watching this kind of two-parter. I hope you enjoyed both pots. And that it was a potty. Yeah. So, again, always let me know if you have any questions, critique, all of that good stuff, or any requests for what you would like to see. There's definitely a lot that I could dive further into, but just trying to keep everything very high level. So, yeah, once again, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And hope to see you later. All right. Bye.